There's a whole lot of jobs on your car, from changing your tires and brakes to oil changes, that mean you need your car up off of its wheels. For the lucky few of you that have lifts at home, and especially in nice heated garages, well, use that and know that we are all very envious of you. But for the rest of us, we have to use some form of jack. Now, I've already done a video comparing a sort of pro level jack to a more home gamer style basic one from Halfords, so you can check that out in the cards up above. But there is also another kind of jack that I didn't mention in that video. It often comes included in your car if you have a spare wheel, and it's often nicknamed the Widowmaker. It's absolutely awful, and I highly recommend you don't use it unless you absolutely have to. With that said, in this video I want to take a look at how to use it safely and how to use a standard jack and all of the associated tools that you might need. Let's start with the absolutely terrifying one first. Now, they come in a couple of different styles, including the one that I have, which is a sort of scissor lift, although you can also get ones that are sort of arm that unfolds. Either way, they normally use a threaded rod and open up in some way to lift the car off the ground. Now, they're usually attached to your jacking points or side sills, depending on what you have available. A jacking point will look kind of like this and is normally a molded feature or something rubber, whereas if you only have a side sill like my car, it's just an exposed piece of metal essentially. Might be covered in some paint, but that's where you jack from. When using the included jack with your car, what you want to do is have it unwound so that it's right up against your jacking point, whether that's the side sill or a proper point, and then slowly lift up using the included handle. It'll probably take a while as the action on it is relatively slow, and I can't stress this enough, when you do get the wheel off the ground, do what you need to do. Don't get under the car at all in any fashion, even if it's just your foot. Do what you need to do as quick as you can, get your wheel back on and get it back down. This thing is really, really not designed for any proper sort of work on your car. You shouldn't be using this one to do oil changes. This is the sort of, you're at the side of the road, you need to swap to your spare, you use that for the 3 minutes that it takes to swap out your tire, and that's it. Right, so that's the emergency jack. What about if you need to, jack up your car to do some work on it? Well, you want to use a normal style jack, ideally a trolley jack like the ones that I've shown already. You can use a couple of extra things that will make things a lot safer, namely jack stands and chock blocks. Now, the chock blocks are basically just wedges that you put in front or behind your tire to stop the car from rolling as you lift it up and once it's in the air. You can get some proper ones, or blocks of wood can do in a pinch essentially. You want to chock the wheel that's going to be off the ground last, or the one that's not going to lift up. If you're jacking up, say, the left-hand side of your car, you'll want to put the chock blocks on the right-hand side rear wheel if you're jacking up the front left, as when you jack up the front left, the rear left will also lift up a little bit too, as you can see. One of the other tools you'll need, like I said, is some jack stands. There's a couple of different kinds of these. There are the sort of basic ones which use a bar that hold them in place and have a couple of different adjustment points, or there are ratcheting ones which are a little bit fancier, a little bit more expensive, and a little bit easier to adjust to the exact height you want and, say, help level your car out. Either way, whatever you have, you will want them if you need to jack up your car and work under it. If you're just doing a basic, tire or brake job, then often, as long as you're not getting under the car in any way, using just the jack can be okay. Although, again, it's up to you how much you want to put that risk on. But if you're working under your car at all, even if it's just on one side, definitely use a jack stand as well. Depending on how high your car is off the ground and how much ground clearance you have to your jacking points, you might need to use a small ramp to lift your car up, or technically you could just use a ramp to lift the car up off the ground enough to get under it or work anyway. That's up to you. But I made some sort of small ramps, especially for the Mini, which the jacking point on that is incredibly low, and my jack can't get under that. So you can roll the car up onto a little ramp like that, and then you can easily get under there to jack the car up. When it comes to actually jacking the car up, you have a couple of options. Now, you can use these side jacking points that we've talked about, including the ones on the Mini or the side sills that I have on mine. Although, if you have a car like the BMW 5 Series we've checked out a few times, that has central jacking points, which make it really easy to lift one end of the car up, put your jack stands under at the standard jack points, and it's a lot easier. Now you will need a long low profile jack like the one that we've checked out before, because you need to be able to lift the car with the sort of arm at quite a low angle, and that jack does facilitate that, whereas my standard one doesn't do quite as well. But if you are going to jack up from the side, then what you do is you raise the platform up to the jacking point, in my case the side sill. You gently make contact, make sure that it's sitting nice and central, make sure that the jack is in a good position so that it's not going to tip over, and then slowly jack the car up until your wheel is off the ground and you have enough space to get your jack stand under. While you're lifting it up and pumping your handle, then make sure that the jack isn't tipping too heavily and that all the wheels are still making contact with the ground. This can be difficult, especially if you're on uneven surface like I am, but just make sure that it isn't gonna, topple over on you. Once it's high enough and you can get your jack stand under, place your jack stand under there and slowly lower the car down onto the jack stand, making sure that the jack stand is taking a reasonable amount of weight, and then slowly lower it down, making sure that the car doesn't want to tip over and the jack stand to fall over as well. It's on good solid ground. Then once you have removed your jack out of the way, and especially if you're going to do the other side, go do the other side, then you should shake the car as hard as you physically can before taking anything off or getting under there to make sure that it isn't going to fall over when you're under it. If you need to get under the car, it's a good idea, especially if you're already removing your wheels anyway, to place them under the sides of the car, under the sills, so that in the very worst case scenario, if your jack stands fail for whatever reason, the car will drop onto them and you don't get crushed by your engine block. It's also a good idea to have them sort of facing up so that you have the most rigidity, the most surface area contact on the side sills, again, for the best chance of, well, added safety. So that's pretty much how to jack up your car. There can be a couple of other things, like leaving your trolley jack lifted up and gently supporting on one of the sides as an added layer of protection. But of course, with all of this stuff, the level of safety that you work at is entirely up to you, and it's generally better to err on the side of caution. If you have any questions about jacking up your car, or doing it safely, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. I'd also be interested to hear how you do it yourself, and especially if you have a lift, what's that like? Because I got no idea. Otherwise, that is pretty much it from me. If you want to see more videos like this one on a weekly basis, then hit that subscribe button. Feel free to check out the other videos on the end cards, including the jack comparison if you want to see pro versus sort of basic. And otherwise, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.